Yeah.
But
We
thank you
really
for-
need these
but-
documents.
So thank you for the warning.
You got memories of someone that screwed you. We've all been in that boat one time or another. But yeah.
Okay, well, if you bring that up, don't pound the table.
No, no, no. No,
So are you still operating out of?
At Connecticut, but not much anymore. I'm too old. So
Yeah.
I can't live that long.
Yeah.
Well, I had a major heart attack 2 years ago.
Where do you operate out of?
I
He's-
work in a museum.
Oh, okay, nice.
I mean, there are games that we have
Is
to
it
play, but
which
it's the Strong National Museum of Play
Oh, okay.
in Rochester.
Rochester has a great pinball scene.
Yes.
Really, I played in the Beats. No, I played something in the Rochester Collective a couple years ago, and I was just so
Yeah, they've
impressed
done
with
great there, yeah.
their commitment to quality is impressive.
Yeah.
Well, the commitment to quality of their podcast could be better.
In accordance with Chapter 220 of Massachusetts General Laws, this session is being audio and video recorded for live streaming and future rebroadcast. By remaining in this area, you acknowledge and consent to your voice and likeness being recorded.
Hello, history buffs. Welcome to our panel where we're going to find out about a new area of exploration and research for the Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. And do we have one or two slides there? No? Oh, okay. Well, then I'll have Jeremy Saucier talk about this whole thing of the operator history.
Sure. So I'm Jeremy Saucier. I'm Vice President for Interpretation and Electronic Games at the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. So I've been at the Strong for about 14 years. Just to give you really quick background, we are the National Museum of Play. So we're a collections-based museum that collects, preserves, and interprets everything related to play. So we have a collection of more than 500,000 objects, playthings like toys, dolls, board games, pinball machines, video games, but then also the historical materials that are related to play, often from companies, designers, all sorts of related materials. And so kind of I think when Dave and I started talking about this, one of the things that more recently that I've been thinking about is what are the areas of coin-operated game history that we don't really talk about, that they're under-documented, they're not really discussed in the historical literature very much. I thought a lot more about this the last couple of years. We had finished a exhibit called Infinity Arcade that specifically focused on the history of coin-operated games and the arcade. And I should probably say that the Strong itself is nearly 400,000 square foot, so it's one of the largest history museums in the country. So this is just one exhibit in a much larger museum with a library and archive and other collections. But as we were developing that exhibit, the thing that I kept coming back to was that, yes, we've collected a lot of materials, and we draw on those materials for exhibits, but one area that seemed to be, it's not like we have nothing, and we can talk about what we have, but the area that seems to be that there's not a lot of materials, not a lot of documentation, not a lot of information about is operating, right?
As shown on the chart there. And we could go to the next slide now that we have our slides and see, I think some of, you have the next slide button, we don't have it over here. Oh, well, okay.
Yeah,
that's,
so this is,
that's the museum?
it's an example of just a photo from one of our exhibits, our Pinball Playfields exhibit. So it's an exhibit that focuses specifically on the history of pinball.
And the next slide?
And just, giving you a sense of the fact that we collect these historical materials beyond the games themselves. And so we have a library and archive that researchers from all over the world come to do research. We have things, just as an example, so we have an enormous collection of materials from Atari's coin-op division. We have materials related to engineering, manufacturing, some design from Williams Pinball, Bally
Like
Midway.
the Steve Kordek papers came to you?
Yeah, as well as Steve Kordek, Carol Cantor, who was one of the first people to do market research in the coin-op industry while she was at Atari. So you have her papers. So individuals, but then also corporate records and companies. So it's an example of just some of the boxes in our archives. But I think, where this, the sort of genesis of this was really that we have some things in the archives related to operation, to operating games, but there's not a whole lot there, and there's a variety of
Compared
reasons.
to all the manufacturer stuff, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that really, in my work at the museum, I look at it as, this is the work that, we measure in terms of decades and not necessarily, we're going to get something quickly. So if you look at the slide behind me, just to give you an example of some of the work that we've been doing that kind of leads to where we are today. So if you look at the history of the operator, we have kind of these different collections that have come to the museum that I think don't tell a full story. And so what you see behind me is up in the corner, we worked with the family of Steve Epstein after he passed away. For those of you who aren't familiar with Steve, he was the longtime owner of the Broadway Arcade in New York City, was an incredible evangelist for pinball as a sport. And so we collected a group of materials, including videos, scrapbooks, photographs, some other materials that he had done some work on design himself as well. But things to kind of document the Broadway Arcade and some of that experience. Below it, you see a couple of photographs from a Seaside, New Jersey arcade from the 1940s and 50s. And this came from a family member whose grandfather was Ira Rabkin. And this was their arcade. Again, not sure if any of you are familiar with the Rabkin name, but his brother William he became the president of International Mutascope, which was a company on Long Island that made some pretty incredible early coin-op games and was pretty big in the industry in the 40s and into the 50s. And then to the right is a very recent collection that was donated to us. And we actually had a research, so we have research fellowships at the museum, right? So we'll pay a modest sum to help defray the cost of people traveling. It's competitive, but it's usually graduate students, independent researchers, sometimes professors. But one of these research fellows was working on a documentary, Justin Tolliver, and I had this conversation with Justin, and he said, working on this documentary. My father was an operator. He partnered with this operator named Chuck Trowbridge, and Chuck has this documentation, and he starts explaining to me what he had, and so you can actually see behind me examples of he had kept notebooks that were akin to diaries from when he started as an operator. So this is about 1981. And so from 1981 to 1984, he's writing down in these notebooks, I went to this location. I had a conversation with this person. I did this. We're testing this game. We went to this show. And there's a whole like planes, trains, and automobiles like thing with him going to him and his friend going to the AMOA show at one point. But these kinds of documents, this sort of documentation exists nowhere else. I mean, I would compare it to, if trying to understand, say, rural farming in the colonial period and having a farmer's diary. It's just those things you rarely ever find those. And so these are kind of part of what I think is an initiative, an effort by the museum to try to collect in this area, to try to document the history of people who I consider are on the front lines of the coin-op business. And that's kind of what I think brought us here today.
As we were talking about, and you're hearing about it here for the first time. So I stumbled across this thing, which might be the kind of artifact you're looking for. Now, as I was drawing this up back in 1973, I wasn't really thinking, oh, someday some historian is going to want to know the whole thing. So it's kind of partial, but I had some other people working with me on my route in another part of New Hampshire, and we had to plan out a whole day that was going to be a day of rotation. So on this little sheet, I didn't write down where the games were coming from, but apparently we were bringing in a Gottlieb Grand Slam, and then there was some question about whether it was going to work or whether the outer space that we had was going to be able to be repaired. So there's like two scenarios, like if it works, we're going to move this game here and then take the game out of that place and move it over to this other place. And then we're going to take that game out of there and move it over to this other place. And here's a location that can have either one or two pinballs. So depending on whether the game works, we're going to, and over here's a little matrix of what games have already been in which places, so we don't put the same game back again. So this would be the kind of thing that you want me to leave in my papers that I'm leaving to the museum, right?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, this is what I would think of as, it's documentation, but it's ephemera, right? It's the kind of thing that any operator may have used, but would have simply, except in the case of you, Dave, would have likely thrown it away, would have at some point it would have been lost to time. And that's the stuff that we want to keep, right? The stuff that, either you thought this is too important to throw away, or it just, you kept it and it survived. But that's a great example.
You threw it in the bottom of the box and it just surfaced 53 years later. Yeah. Jody, in your route, are you doing things like little scribbles on paper? And
Yeah, I'm doing a 9-game move, 10-game move this month. Everything's getting swapped out, and I'm laughing because I have a diagram with the dates, times you can get in, and then I have a whiteboard to track what's going where and when it went in. But I need to do a spreadsheet to make sure I don't double up. But yeah, same kind of stuff. A notebook of repairs and problems and parts. And I would think once you get over a certain number of games, you have to have some sort of organizational piece to keep.
Well, I think a lot of those guys used to keep a lot in their heads. Wouldn't you say so, Ed Kelsey?
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
how many operators I worked for and all the years I operated.
So you were working for operators, and then you sort of went independent?
Yeah.
And how did you break away from the other,
Well,
Other
you
guys.
asked me about Joe Primont,
yeah,
and there's a lot of
famous carnival operator?
he did a lot of weird things. I mean, I'll give you an example. Well, one thing that happened was he had machines all over the University of Massachusetts. I mean, there was pinball in frat houses. There was pinball. They were everywhere. So we loaded the truck up with 2 pinballs. We go up to UMass, and it's a girls' dormitory on top of it. Well, we couldn't put 2 pinballs in the elevator because we had to go to the 2nd floor. Okay, let's put one on, then come down and get the other. We loaded up, went up. We didn't set it up or anything. I don't think we were up there longer than 5 minutes. Came down, no pinball. It was gone.
So this is getting into like the oral history part of it. things
Yeah,
that happen.
and there's Joe just, he's a nice guy, but he was a little cuckoo. And he played games with the wrong people. Now, we redid a ball bowler, restained, made it nice. We bring it to this place. An hour later, he gets a call. Get it out of there. Oh, no, I ain't taking it out. Who the hell you think you are? He was a crazy guy. Well, when you get the word to get it out of there, you don't. Something's going to happen. Sure enough, place burned to the ground that night.
So the
Right to the
location
ground.
was gone
The
along
location.
with the game.
Yeah, it was gone
Hmm.
because he played with the wrong people. Up by Springfield, Mass, Holyoke. I call them the boys.
Yeah, euphemisms abound in that part of the business.
Oh man, later I got to know some of them. I don't know, they weren't bad to me, but
Well, yeah, they were just setting you up so that if you ever needed to be guided away from a certain place, they could just call you and.
oh,
Right.
well, you know how I worked with them. They never said we got a machine in Joe's Pizza or something like that. It'd be the address. Say it was 603 Main Street. And that's how they went by it. They didn't say 603 Main Street's our location. And I don't know. I never messed with them.
Yeah.
I got friendly with a couple of them, somewhat, and they never gave me a hard time, but I didn't play with them either. I knew better.
Yeah, good.
You don't play with those guys.
And you're still here to live to tell about it.
Oh yeah.
So are there any paper items, little scraps or things that?
I probably do, but Bob Jarn.
Yeah.
He called me about 2 weeks ago, and he says, I bought a Jungle Life today. Then I realized I sold this machine to this guy 40 years ago. Okay. Next day he calls me, and he took photos of it. It was the business card, Playtown Amusements, which we used to go get stuff from. Turn it over, and it had the name of the locations and what date it was put in there and everything.
Oh,
Oh, that's nice.
great.
I can get it for you. I mean, but operating today is totally different than it was way back.
Yeah, well, one of the big he's a service guy who has big operator clients who works with us at the show, said, I was asking him questions leading up to being on this panel, and he's talking all about software. Like you going over to the spreadsheet, Jody. It would be, I can punch these numbers into my program, and it will tell me exactly what the ticket payout ought to be on this redemption piece. And, so yeah, that's the kind of thing today is software is so enmeshed, and you know, like probably when you switched to the jukeboxes connected to the
Yeah.
internet, and you had
You know-
they were doing stuff for you.
You know what, I was at the, the big show when they were introducing the internet jukebox. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, $1 play? No one's gonna play for $1. These guys are full of crap. Well, that was a mistake, because you put an internet box after you had the 45 and the CD box in there, the money more than tripled.
Because
It
there's
was-
so many selections.
That's the big thing. I mean, operators are reluctant at first. They kept saying, well, I got a huge library of 45s or CDs. Doesn't matter. The internet one can get you millions of songs. And but yeah, the internet jukebox, I say, saved the operators. I really feel that the internet box turned things around.
Yeah. Are you running any jukeboxes?
No, no, but the operator that I learned with, that I got friendly with about 8, 9 years ago, and kind of he taught me everything, is an old school operator, very little on paper,
Mm-hmm.
Rarely a contract with anyone.
Yeah.
He preferred no trail. He didn't. He was the same thing. It was. To your point, Jody. If there's a pool table that's taking money or a jukebox, don't even ask. Don't even ask. So, I kind of cut my teeth on that structure and that attitude. And the jukeboxes were his biggest earner, always. And anything that he could do to upgrade, and he was smart enough to kind of keep it all in his head. He would lose machines. I'd say, you still got a Aerosmith down in Killington. He'd be, what? Oh, geez, when did that go in there? It's been there 5 years. He doesn't, he would lose stuff, but he very much followed kind of the old. It was a lot of oral history that I got for him about how things worked, because I think he was 3rd generation operator.
Wow.
So he was, he would tell stories about his dad putting him in a warehouse with a machine and say, find the stuck switch. You can't leave here until you find the stuck switch. And he just, he was a big one with repairs. I've got a machine on location that's still running on a zip tie around a Game of Thrones mech, and I think it's been 6 years. Runs great.
Well, I'm curious as a person trying to collect and document this history. What to hear you talk about it, so what's your impression? And both of you, why do you think that? I mean, I have my own ideas, but why do you think that it was done like that? Why do you think that there? How do you explain for generations you just had people trying to do all this in their head and not documenting anything?
I think for the operator I worked with, it was secrecy. It was keeping the cards close to the chest. You don't want people to know where the good location is, because you don't want them in that neighborhood. And also you were often dealing with some rough customers. They would mess up your stuff. They would break your machines if you didn't get them out at a reasonable pace or infringed. Or when I first put machines in Burlington, Vermont, he asked me, has anybody been in contact with you? And I said, well, wait a minute, what do you mean? I've been real careful. I haven't stepped on toes. I said, how would I know? He said, you'll know. He said, they'll break your machines and they'll be waiting there for you when you come to repair it. And so I just am real aware of who's on what side of the street.
In innocent little Burlington, Vermont, who would have thought?
But it's by the same token, there's a whole new breed of operator that does things much differently. They will share their spaces to get more machines, to get more money, to get more players. There's a turning point somewhere where the old guard is getting older and they're stepping back, and the new and there's unless you do it a particular way, there's not a lot of money in pinball. There's more money in the jukeboxes. There's more money in the
cranes.
The cranes.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, the cranes. So the pinball, to just have one pin somewhere, it doesn't suit a big operator like Ed. It just doesn't, it's not worth their time. And when I see big operators put in machines now, they're just placeholders. It's because the owner wanted them, but they're put in dirty, they don't work, they haven't been checked. Nobody really cares. It's
Yeah.
just a different attitude.
Well, that's true.
I know it is.
I know this location, they wanted a pinball real bad.
Mhm.
And I told them, you're not gonna make any money.
Right.
I says, we had a silver strike bowling and a golden tee.
Mhm.
You know, those were the earners. Well, you know, I'm kinda out of it now. And the operator brought this pinball in there. It was some early Stern game, it wasn't anything new. Thing didn't work worth crap. The play field was dirty as hell, like nobody ever cleaned it. It just shocks me because this is a big operator, but he told me that he doesn't put pinballs out because there's absolutely no money in them. Versus the cost of a machine, I don't care if you put it on $1 play, you can't possibly get your money back.
Takes a lot longer than it did 10, 15, 20 years
Oh.
ago. And you have to do it differently. You have to have multiple machines that work well, and I think you have to build a community and have events.
Yeah.
And you have to do that. You can't just, it's just the younger folks today. I put 2 machines in a college last year, and they could not care less.
They don't even understand how to start it.
They don't, and I was running
They do.
events, and nobody would show up, and
Yeah.
nobody cared, and I plugged them, and it's just a different, whereas I see operators in one location build it with multiple machines and do it well, and they're clean, and they work, and then they also have other machines, they'll have some cabinets, they'll have different stuff, but it doesn't, to just plop one machine somewhere is not,
Yeah, and
is a risk.
just to double check, the Silver Strike Bowling, that has a slice of the revenue going to the manufacturer?
That's, you could.
Okay, so there's some configurations
There-
of it
Yeah,
where the
Golden Tee is the same thing.
Golden Tee. So there are some cases where you have to be documented to the extent that because it's internet connected and the manufacturer knows how much money is coming in and they get a piece.
They know.
Yeah,
And if they also take cards, that's also being tracked, and a certain, like with the jukebox, a certain percent goes to the licensing and the music.
yeah.
I'm also positive too. Sorry to jump in.
Step over there, use that
Oh, you got a
microphone
little
up there.
mic there.
This is Lonnie, he operates in upstate New York, around
Yeah.
Lake George area
Yeah,
in
so-
Saratoga.
Sorry to jump in there, but just I would say another thing that I've noticed for the reason that operators keep it all in their head is I think it's a holdover from a lot of the older ones that it takes a certain kind of person to do it. I think a lot of the guys, that was just how they were. They just keep it all, as you said, close to the chest, in their head, perhaps from the origins of how it was, where it was a little bit more seedy. I've heard some stories from old operators that said, you know, they worked with different people in the community, and they said, these people owe me money. You're gonna go put a machine in the grocery store, you meet me on Thursday, I get my cut, you get your cut, till I get my money back. You know, obviously you're not gonna send a little receipt to the IRS, here's how much money we extorted from these people, you know? So, I just wanted to kind of put that one out there too.
Sure, thanks. So that's a big motivation right there, is the keeping things under the table, or like the guy who didn't remember that he had his pinball down in Killington, he wasn't claiming depreciation on that game or anything.
Never. But they also, I feel like that generation of operators was super smart. They were hustlers. Like they knew where the things were, and they knew how to work them for the ultimate outcome. Last night I was talking to some.
You got a few games in your warehouse, so you have to learn to be a hustler, right? To get those games on location.
Sure, but it was interesting last night talking to a couple operators and hearing the different stories. And it's just a much different, when I talk to operators today, it's a totally different attitude to talk to Ty and Daniel as opposed to when I talk to the operator I learned from. It's just it's a different angle.
Well, but I think you also identified something pretty significant there of the pinball is splitting away because we've got a show here, for example, that is basically pinball centric, and it's helping operators like you build into a larger ecosystem that's specifically about pinball as opposed to about amusement games. So back in the early 70s, I thought, and Marshall Karras would tell me, I was a new breed operator because I was interested in playing the games and, like you guys, making sure that they played well as opposed to just sort of plopping them down there on location. But I was still operating under the idea that the smallest unit of being an operator is to be music and games. So, like, not doing vending or any other kind of coin up, but only music and games is as limited as you could be. So, foosball was hot at the time, had a lot of foosball tables out. Luckily, I avoided the wall games, those old remote control things that were threatening to be something big, but I don't think ever really did become anything big. Bowling machines were a thing that you had to do if there was a location that said, we like sliding that puck down the alley, but they were much more expensive. So trying to keep with pinball as much as possible because, you know, this was right after Pinball Wizard became a hit song for the first time. And it was a big wave of enthusiasm for pinball. But you have to be a full games line, but it sounds like you're now able to coexist with...
In some situations, but I'm only all pinball because I'm so limited in my ability to repair things. I'm not that great at it. So I'm careful about what I interact with, but I think, you know, the folks that I see that are most successful are able to do more of everything, and so they have options.
So to get back on track with the artifacts, how are they learning? Are they going to service schools? Are they getting books? Or
I feel like it's mostly self-taught. I mean, I belong to the Pinball Co-op in Burlington, and we have a repair night. I've been going there every year for 8 years, missing maybe 2 weeks of a year, and I'm still, you know, tiny. I know Dan and Ty, they would be watching the YouTube videos and doing a lot of research and talking to other people. So there's not a paper, you know,
but at least there's YouTube, so for the long run, that might be...
Right, service, other operators are always really helpful. I mean, you know, there are 5 different people I can call at any time to say, what is this? I've done the things, I don't get it.
Those networks, right? That, again, you don't necessarily see, that stuff doesn't show up anywhere unless you ask those questions.
Yeah. So Ed, did you keep any kind of like a little address book with all the people you could call or people who...
Yeah, I did actually, and I ran into a whole bunch of operators. Most of them are pretty good, you know. And of course the distributors, you know, the old Tri-Mount and all them.
Tri-Mount and Robert Jones International.
Yeah, Robert Jones.
WS Distributing.
And sadly, they're all gone, but...
Oh, John, another old-time operator, John Bateman
No,
from Rhode
I'm
Island.
not that old. Maybe. Yeah, just a comment on the history here, and I think you're kind of moving in that direction. But one of the big differences from the early '70s to where we are today is the method of payment. In the old days, operating was strictly cash. You took money out of a bucket, you threw it up in the air, and whatever God wanted, he kept, and whatever landed on the ground, you kept. And there was not a lot of recording of some of this information. So the industry kind of whitewashed a lot of cash. And then let's face it, there were a lot of the boys in the industry, and that's had something to do with the cash. Now today, what's happening, and what started happening with the added bill acceptors, still cash, okay, still a cash business. The next step after that was credit cards. So now we're going into credit card purchases, which are completely legit. They're completely recorded and completely reported. Okay. Dave, at the show, I don't know if you saw that Road Jukebox. They have a new Road Jukebox now that's just like a little box, and you build your own jukebox with this little box. The box is $500, and you can get some other hardware that goes with it. Where's the payment come from? Cell phones. There's no more bill acceptors, no more coin op. It's all going to be done on cell phones. So there's a transition here that changed the industry from cash only, you know, don't touch my location because that's my cash, that type of thing, to credit cards, and then now it's going to be, of course, cell phones. So it'd be interesting to hear what your opinion is on that.
No, that's a big thing with jukeboxes. Actually, I had a location, and the manager of the place said, "You don't let them put it on a credit card, and no sitting at the bar on your phone. I make them go up there and put cash in."
Walk up to the thing on the wall?
Yeah, because a lot of these locations, people don't understand is they actually need that money at the end of the month. And like with the jukeboxes, you don't get your money right away. So, but now it's with probably the younger generation that don't carry cash. But I see them all the time. They're sitting on the phone. What do you want to hear? What do you want to hear? And actually, the operators are liking that because now they're not sending someone to go out and collect the money every 2 weeks because it's all on credit cards. There's nothing to collect.
So it just lands in your bank account?
Yes.
Less the amount for the music licensing,
Oh, yeah.
manufacturer's
Yeah.
cut, and the credit card company's cut.
They get their money first. Row or Touch
Yeah.
Tunes, whoever you have.
Touch Tunes or Row AMI being the two big brands. And,
Those are the two big ones, yes.
now, did you ever run a jukebox that had the optional audit printer that you could have it print out?
Yes,
And did you ever save any of those?
I probably did.
There
but-
was a thing for general amusement game. Actually, I think the company was based in Newton, Massachusetts. International Totalizer. They made a thing. An operator I worked a lot with had a game room in a college, and the college forced them to install those things
Yeah.
at their expense.
I bet you
And
did.
this was already a location where they won it by bidding a more favorable percentage to the location than any other operator that was bidding on it. So that's a bad situation right there.
That
You have to
is
bid
bad.
on the percentage you're giving them. And then on top of that, they had to buy these things and hook them in, which really was basically counting the quarters on a meter, but because of the extra lock on the cash box, the college could already send a representative in at collection time and see the physical quarters, and that wasn't good enough for them. So after a while, they finally trusted the operator and said, okay, you don't have to put those in anymore.
To speak to the cashless, it's on some of the operator groups that I'm on Facebook. One of the operators said when he went to a tap system with the phone,
Swipe cards?
not even a swipe
phone,
card with
okay.
with a some sort of with a Kiosoft or Nayax. I think he was using one of those. Um, his revenue on that machine increased by 75%. So it's something on my radar, but I'm resistant about it. I'm not the best business person when it comes to these machines, but it's on my radar. Like I'd be curious to know if other operators are using any of those. I've seen folks that sell a mounting for the system for like a Nayax, and they run the wire back through the behind the leg post and up through the bottom. I don't know. I'm curious if anybody in here is using them or how they're using them. I know people are using them. I'm just not. I don't understand how they're getting power from the back box, and you do have to have a real reliable internet connection. Is what I understand.
Internet's important. I mean, I'm just saying because of work, all the vending machines at work for
Internet
snacks and
is
stuff
important.
are all that machine.
Yeah.
And there's a little antenna on top of the Coke machine saying if there's no internet, it won't take my card 'cause it's gonna read through that. That's all we use is a Nayax.
Yeah, okay, so that's a vending machine perspective. Now, talk a little bit more about when you're getting into this. So your first, now I know your motivation was I can do pinball better than those other guys, just like me. Same kind of idea of.
No, I don't know that my motivation was that. I saw something that I had a chance to work with that I loved,
Yeah.
and I really admired the operator that I worked with. And he was tired of doing it. So I took over his last 3 machines on his route and kind of started building my own. And I always had him as a resource. And my original idea was that it was my retirement plan. I can't think of a dumber way to save for your retirement, $1 at a time. The same person does that. But it keeps me moving. Like I may never make my investment back by the time I retire. I definitely put too much money in and I'm working too hard. But I also, it keeps me moving and whatever.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. I'm
the
still
other
tweaking
part,
it.
the other part of being the new breed as opposed to the original new breed is that you have more opportunities to go to a location and say it's not just that you're putting games in, but that you're connected with the co-op and the tournaments, and you can make the location be an NEPL league location,
But
potentially.
Here's the tricky thing with that. With any location, if they have room for machines, they probably don't have the business to support them.
Yeah.
If they don't have any room, that's where you want to be. You're trying to say, we can monetize that 3x5 space behind the bathroom door. I can put a Jaws there against that blue wall, and it's gonna look great. And maybe I'll make my nut, but also maybe I'll only make half my nut, and I need to be happy with that. Like it's not when I first started scouting locations, it was pretty discouraging. I heard no all the time with perfect locations that had lots of room that just didn't understand pinball or what could happen in that space if they let me put 8 machines there. And people just ghost you. They never call back. I have to keep going. I have to, the best locations are the ones where the owner loves pinball and the employees love the owner. Because if the owner
Yeah.
plays, those
Like
employees
Tokens
play.
Tap Room in Dover, New Hampshire,
Right.
for example.
It makes all the difference. But it took me, I'm in my 3rd year of doing this, and I've got 13 machines out, but it took me I had a lot of time where I had 5 machines in different people's living rooms just waiting to be placed.
And any interesting artifacts as you were being mentored by the old operator?
He did. He used to use one of those ditto sheets under his, he had the metal clipboard, and I'd go on collections with him, and he had jukeboxes and foosball tables, and he was not a regular collector. He might go in and they'd be like, "Where have you been? We haven't seen you in 8 months. The dollar bill acceptors are all full. Nothing's been taking money." this is down, and he'd go in with his toolkit and he'd just fix stuff. And he did. He would have a file full of his collection sheets, and his order sheets, and his everything else. Yeah.
Okay, so there was some paper trail.
Yeah,
there.
yeah, he had some, but I think if anybody came knocking, he would burn it. He'd be the first one in there putting it through a shredder.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used the collection books that I ordered from the Wicco catalog, that, the old National Parts House that was like the big mail order type parts supplier. And they had these collection books that, you just write the name of each game and how much it took in, and maybe you could calculate the percentage if you had enough time, free plays as a percent of total plays. And I don't know if I saved any of those. I haven't bumped into any of them in a long time, if I did save them. But that was kind of the collection cycle, and this was before Frank the Crank Sininsky went on his big campaign in the industry, and he was saying, you got to do more than just talk about the income side. You got to measure how much it's costing you to drive, how much, if you have to go down to Colchester, Connecticut, you should be charging the mileage, and, so the total cost of having that as one of your locations with the tools and all the servicing you have to do. You're going in there and fixing stuff and charging the parts to them and so forth. Dave Fix looks like he has a question. He's an operator.
Yeah, a few years, just a few. Two questions. First of all, how far a distance do you guys have your routes? Mine currently is 9 hours from where I live. So I go over once a month and take care of all my machines, and I have a on-time guy that I just call if I have a quick delivery. He knows where I'm in Buffalo. But the second question I have for you is, where I am in Chicago currently, I see that a lot of operators are now leaving the amusement and arcade devices because of slot machines being legalized, and they have to diversify and break off. And they're putting locations now where there were never arcade machines, now all of a sudden have 6 slot machines, because that's what the state requires.
Interesting.
Because they are now all connected to the internet, because they can monetize the money coming into the slot machine. The state gets their cut, the location gets their cut, and the operator gets their cut. So they all know this now. So do you guys see that as a problem for you guys coming in the future, or I see it as an opportunity, is because now locations that want pinball or arcade things, they don't want the slot machine. So it's a big divide happening in Chicago and Illinois.
And let me jump in. Is gambling part of what the Strong Museum covers, or what's your?
I think we talk about it. It is an area of play. It's not something that we focus a lot on in terms of collecting. So we have some examples of that, but not as many.
Here's a perfect example of the dilemma that it's cutting into the other business.
Yes.
So are you seeing any?
No slots in Vermont.
Yeah.
Vermont,
Okay.
it's not, but you're right, there is a tremendous opportunity with the internet and things, and being able to track things, and even if it costs to get things set up, if I'm making $500 a machine on a certain machine a month and can make 75% more, yes, I should learn how to do that. If I'm making $30 on that machine and it will make 75% more, no, I'm really going to drag my feet on that. So for me, it's and I'm just slow to learn that stuff. It took me so long to figure out the dollar bill acceptors.
Yeah, and Ed, when I'm hearing some of this, it's, I don't want these manufacturers knowing all about my strengths and weaknesses. Someday they could turn against me and say, tip off some other operator that they like better, that, Ed Kelsey is making big money in this club you never heard of that,
See, the one thing about that is certain states have certain regulations. And I'll give you a bad one, Connecticut. They got the 2 casinos. These Indians run them. They control all the gambling in the state. They wouldn't let the firemen carnival have a money wheel. And you know what? You're helping the fire department in your community, but because they got the 2 casinos, they do everything.
so you're not even faced with the potential of possibly having gambling.
Well, see what happens in the next election there, but it's just, they got a stronghold, put it that way.
Yeah. Now, how about his other question of the geographical extent of your route? How far east, west, north, south did you go?
Yeah, you know me, I was crazy. Like going to Colchester and go to the other end of the state, I mean.
Well, Connecticut's a small state.
Yeah, I know it is, but it's time involved and everything, but it's not a problem for T&M. They don't even I think they got most of the state now.
Yeah, and they started way out in eastern Connecticut.
Yeah, but
Danielson area.
They're over by me now too.
Wow.
Right next to the museum, they opened that go-karting place, and it's T&M, and his games are all shitty.
Huh. So,
It's hard.
So
and-
bad.
and you're not right on the New York border. You're pretty far in, right?
Yeah, well, I know that they're near
About an hour.
Mike. That's gotta be like 3 hours, I think, from where they're based out of, right? 3.5.
yeah, I bet it is.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Godzilla's like black as could be, you know?
Yeah. So operating still remains a localized business, but if you're doing it right, you have to be able to get out to those games and the jukeboxes.
You know, the thing is, the price of equipment today is crazy anyways. I mean, I looked out there on the floor and there's a pinball machine down there, $14,900. When I started, single player Gottliebs were $575. You got a 2-player, it was $675, 4-player was $775. Now these were still on dimes. You could pay for the machine
Animal
in
steak.
2 months.
Wow.
I don't know, I can't see how they can do it today. I
Now,
mean,
2 years is a promising return.
Yeah.
Right.
2 years. would
plus
be-
the fact, the distributor, when the new games came out, would take one that you had and give you $200 trade-in. You only paid.
Yeah, I operated when trade-ins were very much a thing.
Well,
and,
it was very big.
And Robert Jones also had a leasing program, so you didn't have to buy the game. You could say, I'm going to lease it for a year, and there was paperwork with that, of course.
Yeah.
But then,
Yeah, my operator did that too.
Yeah.
I think he went through Betson where he would lease the games.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't think that's an option for most of them anymore, right?
I don't
I
know.
don't think many lease anymore.
I was over at Betson earlier this week, and for the big arcade pieces, the
$70,000
Halo Fire Team
Godzilla
Raven
VR.
thing or something. Yeah, they have to offer that. It's either that or participation in some way. Dave Fix, you have another comment?
Well, yeah, I was just going to follow up on that. Do you guys, and this is what I do with my locations when I put a new machine in. I have a standing agreement that the first 6 months is total revenue comes to me. And then after that, we go back to a 50-50 split or whatever. Do you guys do that, or do you guys try a 70-30 split for a while? The reason on that is because usually if I do that, I have the machine paid off within the first year. And then because I got that, and if I'm putting, and I tell them, I'm putting a $10,000 or $8,000 machine in your location, Insider Connect, all kinds of cool stuff, I'm bringing people to you. So you're going to benefit off the food, the revenue, and all that other stuff. So that's kind of the way I sell it. But
as
get their idea.
a new breed operator could even say that I'm going to bring the leagues and the tournaments and so forth. So
I mean, I certainly try. I usually scout a location, talk to whoever the contact is, and I do them up kind of a prospectus, a frequently asked questions. They're always worried about the noise. I've had some people be like, we don't want that element in here. My response is, you don't want fun? You don't want fun? I don't know what you're talking about. But that's standard in Vermont with the different operators that I know, the old school, Ed Wilson and Anthony, has always been 70-30. And I have reworked my contracts that 70-30 is where we start, but if the machine doesn't make a certain amount, my cut gets bigger and yours gets smaller until it gets to a certain point where I won't ever give them less than 10% because they should know how little I'm making. Like if I'm only giving you $8 a month, we have a problem. Like and the problem with those places that don't do well is it's hard to get the machines out. They don't want you to take the machines out because those pretty lights in the corners may be the only things they have going for them. So it's a way to kind of cycle and a soft pull then, like, you know what, we tried this, we're down to 10%. We're in month 4 now of me,
It's quite interesting.
It's a delicate thing because they don't, if it's not doing well.
Well, the more you get into like a larger route, you need to have A, B, and C locations.
That's pretty much how we operated back in them days. Your best location's got the new machine. That machine went to your second one, to the third one, and then it was put to pasture or traded in or something. I would think most operators still operate that way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, you have to.
I mean, you got a location. Oh, we want this jukebox. You go there for 2 weeks, and there's $50 in it, and they want half of it. Well,
Tesco,
wait a
are you
minute.
looking to ask a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Closer to the mic.
My question. Would you ever consider like approaching a place that seems skeptical and propose like, hey, let's try it out for a few months under some financial situation just to sort of trial run, or does that feel like too much?
I certainly
effort?
did that. I do that. It's always a trial run. The first 3 months for my contracts are always a trial run. If it doesn't work for one of us, it doesn't work for both of us. Chances are if they don't want it in there after 2 months, it's not doing anything, and I don't want it in there after 2 months either. I've only had one location say, pull it. I hate it, we hate it, get it out. I put a Beatles into some weird little record shop that only played really soft, new age, synthetic music, and they didn't want to be able to hear the machine. So after 2 months, I'm thinking, oh my God, I got to get this machine out of here, and they contacted me and said, please. I said, no problem. No harm, no foul. It's always and then after 3 months, they have to give me, one of us has to give each other a month notice before I pull it, is how I work it.
Never mind, leave that spot with the record shop.
So I'd love to hear more about that thought process of identifying these locations and what has gone into that.
And particularly, I think, what about when you get a location and you can size them up and say, this is going to be a C location, but I need a C location?
Well, it's a gamble like putting machines any place in the first place. It's a big gamble, but it does happen. I'll give you a good example. When I was working for this old operator back in the 70s, he calls me. Are you in the shop? Yeah. Load up the truck with these 2 pinballs and gave me the address. Well, I've never been. It's not really the best section of town. But anyways, I brought them. And I pulled up and I says, you're putting pinballs in here? I don't think. I says, what are they going to do here? Oh, they're going to sell potato chips and soda and stuff. I go, what? I says, Izzy, this one's spot for you. You're going to collect it. Was 1 week later, get the same call. You at the shop? Yeah. Bring the truck. The front door of this place was busted down. The pinball, they pried them open. Actually, all them locations that we used to have it was in Hartford mainly. Today, you wouldn't even walk down that. You wouldn't get out of your car down there.
And this was Izzy's specialty, or just he had to have some to balance out his route, would you say?
Well,
Did he have some better locations?
oh yeah, no, he had good ones, but still, like today, you couldn't do what they did back then. There's no way. The cost of the equipment's so high, you won't make any money. It's just it's a tougher business than it was. And that's why I talk to a lot of these guys, and all they want is now is jukeboxes and ATM machines. Because the ATM machine, I was talking to one operator, he says, it's better than money in the bank. Because, they charge so much for a fee.
But even ATM machines are going by the wayside because people don't need cash for places. There aren't, the dive bar that was my first machine has an ATM and it's cash only, and it is an anomaly. People are like, what do you mean? What?
Like I can't hold up
Cash
my phone and
only?
get
Yeah,
this
they get
drink?
their phone out and they're all ready to go, and they're like, nope, cash only. No tabs, get your cash. ATM is there, but they don't, it's, ATMs are, I always see them for sale.
Mhm.
People are always hustling to put them in somewhere.
Always.
Always.
Jeremy, more questions for these people?
Yeah, I mean, I think thinking back to the motivation of going into this, I mean, what I'm hearing is how difficult this can be. So I think both in the sense of thinking about this history and your own personal histories of getting involved in the industry. So I think I'd love to hear a little bit more about what was the thinking there in terms of, I know you talked about initially for you, Jody, that this was going to be a retirement thing, it's passion, but the motivation of getting into this, and why have you stuck with it? And why did you stick with it for so long?
Yeah, I stuck with it probably too long, but but the trouble with the coin-op business is you open that door and you see the money and it motivates you right away. Oh, this is great. But one thing about, like pinball machines and stuff, there's getting to be fewer and fewer locations because the mom and pop bar are disappearing. And what's it disappearing to? Well, you get Hooters and Longhorns and stuff like that. That replaced them. Well, they're not taking any coin up. They don't want it. But I mean, there's still got to be, because there's still operators doing it.
Yeah, but what we celebrate here at the show is a lot of the very specialized pinball locations, even the clubs, but
Yeah.
like Pastime Pinball in Manchester,
Right,
Yeah.
Vermont,
right.
is
But
basically.
those kinds of things for me, I love going into a random place and seeing a clean working machine of something in the corner. Like, I'm just like, wait, what? That's there? I love checking the pinball map, planning my Saturday. Where am I driving to? They got one machine in the bowling alley. Let's take a look. So I love being a part of that. I love my machines to be clean. I want people to play them. People know where my machines are, and they do venture out and play them. So that once a month, 9-hour, 12 hours that I spend on my route that ranges about 140 miles from end to end, it's fun. It's a fun day. There's nothing like walking into a place and nobody really pays any attention to you, and you just leave the cash behind, and the machine's clean, and you put a bunch of credits on it, and you know some kid's gonna be jamming away on it in an hour, and it's just it's a real nice thing. It's
I'm
just
gonna
a
mention
nice thing.
something else, which is the appeal of it's automated, so you're not going there and selling the merchandise or conducting the game live and in person. Some machine is there taking in money for you. And this is an old Income Opportunities magazine that happens to have the pinball machine on the front cover trying to say in April of 1994 that you can make big money while you sleep because this pinball machine is going to be earning for you automatically. And that was certainly an influence on me in the 60s, thinking about maybe I'd have a sideline business of something that I'd just go service the machines once in a while. So, question or another comment from Dave Fix?
Just another comment. So Jody, we talked yesterday, and I know that there's a lot of people who I'm sorry I was late. I was at a funeral. Sorry. How many other operators are in the room? I didn't catch that.
Looks like three.
Any people interested in becoming an operator?
Interested? After this talk, after this?
Always find it.
If we had asked at the beginning of the seminar, it would have been 2, but because we're asking now, it's 0.
So what I'm going to point out is what I've done and what I've worked with, and it might help people to understand. For those who don't know, Pocketeer Billiards, it's in Buffalo, New York, 110 machines. You don't have a lot of time, I gotcha. But that is an operator in my location. Okay? We show...
It's a great location.
We show everybody that location. And what happens is all the best bars in town come into our location and want a piece of that action. And because he's the operator, he gets the phone call, and he's putting those out at other locations. Breweries,
Right.
Microbreweries, they just... It's being the location that you're driving the people into has all of a sudden makes the business for you. You don't have to be the person going to that door. They're going to be sitting at the other end of the bar going, can you put machines in my place? Because Friday night we have 300 people and you got 2 bouncers at the door telling people they got to wait before they come in to play pool or pinball. That's a beautiful thing, right? But it's you going that step. So, Jody, if you have a good friend who has a bar, you just make that arrangement with them and make that the location. And then other locations will pop
It's a destination.
up. Destination.
Yeah.
Pocketeer is a destination.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it started in 2014, and now it's ridiculous how it's grown, right? And then there's other places like out in Chicago. I'm working with Great American Pinball right now. He's a destination of just an operator or of a distributor, and people walk in going, "Hey, I want to have machines in my bar," because you can buy them from him. So he's now leading to locations. I mean, I did the cold calling. That's the crappiest moment
It's
to walk
so
in,
terrible.
hand a card, you see the bartender go, whatever, then throw it over her shoulder. Or what really drove me nuts is when I used to go into a bar that I worked on really hard, walk in and the machines are off because the waitress didn't have time to turn them on.
Right.
And that's when I started putting timers in my machines to automatically turn on and turn off and take that power away from them. But that's just a
No,
thing.
I am at the point where I haven't cold called for over a year and a half, and I am at the point where people are contacting me and saying, let's do it here. But none of my locations have more than 2 machines in it. I just haven't. The destinations are being done really well by other people, and where I am, I had an opportunity to open up a place, a really good deal. It just wasn't the right space. It wasn't built right. It was in a floodplain. Just a lot of, and I wasn't sure that a little town of 8,000 people with an aging population, with an overpriced everything, could support it.
Again, you don't know.
Yeah.
You try.
It's true.
I mean, if Jeremy,
It's
with
all a
the
gamble.
Museum of Strong Play, there's a bunch of new places not too far from you that are location places to play pinball in Rochester. You know, where at one point, Knox Amusements, you had to find one or two machines here or there.
For the recording, you're saying that Rochester has locations that are good for pinball right near the museum.
Yes, yeah, in some ways, right? So what we did, even when we expanded the museum, we, worked with the city and created what's become, neighborhood of play. And there are other businesses within that area that have really invested into play, whether it's a game-themed restaurant, bar, so yeah, I mean, Dave's right that having that pull because people travel these packs, makes a big difference.
So any concluding remarks?
Yeah, I mean, look, this has been really fascinating for me, and I think it helps me understand all the ways too that where there's this spectrum of there's this sort of ephemeral stuff that may or may not exist anymore, and it may have existed in people's heads, but the industry is also changing quite a lot, and so there's even new stuff and new stories that I think we need to make an effort to record. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess I would just put a plug in that, please, if you are an operator or you know an operator who has stuff that is too important to throw away, that kind of documents the work that they've done or that you've done, please talk to me. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks.
Right, and as a pinball historian, I do want to capture these changes and, the new breed keeps coming across again and again as an idea. Part of how it's changing, pinball might be splitting away from all the other types of amusement, and we're here to chronicle that, including in seminars here at Pintastic. So thanks everybody for coming. This has been fun.